Friends, you see all that behind me? The tropics are going to be very active with potential tropical development in the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico all within the next week. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back at Meteo Mundo. Great to see you on a midday Sunday. Hope you're doing well. Coming up in this video, active tropics. We're going to get into several areas of potential tropical development, including this area in the Western Caribbean as it tries to move into the Gulf of Mexico as we head to midweek. There is a very high likelihood of getting a strong hurricane in the central Atlantic in the coming days as well. And we'll look at your island by island rainfall chances as we push into the early part of the week as well. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments section below where you're viewing from, what the weather has been like. Gonna bring on here just the current temperatures at the hour. Now, unfortunately, I still don't have my satellite feed back into the weather computer. There was a big power outage and probably associated with what has happened with Helene in the southeast United States. So hopefully I'll get that feedback soon. And of course, all of our thoughts and prayers are with our friends who are still being impacted by the remnants of Helene. But temperatures, even at the midday hour here on this Sunday, continue to climb. You can see those rising here in Fahrenheit already into the upper 80s and the lower 90s. Some areas are going to get some rain. Other areas, as have been mentioned in the comments, we'll be baking again. So we're going to first start off with what's kind of happening now, then we'll deep dive into the short-term forecast, and then what's going to be happening tropically. So, brought up the NOAA satellite loops here in the Caribbean Sea. You can see that there is a broad spin, mid-level spin, not going to become tropical in nature, but it is going to try and promote a few showers today across the Lesser Antilles. I expect some places like Antigua and Barbuda will have better chance for some showers on this Sunday afternoon. Some of those will skirt the Virgin Islands into Puerto Rico. Of course, I'll show you the model data coming up. Then you can see that there's a nice cluster of moisture just off of the South American coastline. Places like Nueva Esparta and Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao will continue to have a higher than normal rain chance. As this moisture progresses west, it begins to run into the east side of that Central American gyre, which again is a broad spin across Central America. It's that monsoonal flow, and that moisture is going to get rocking, and higher rain chances will come our way for Cuba and Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, and then west into all of Central America and the Yucatan as well. We'll pick up that Gulf of Mexico satellite, and you can see that moisture feeding in. Now again, this is all ahead of any potential tropical development in this area, but it is a sign, just like when Helene just started to get going, that there could be some spin associated with that moisture moving into the Western Caribbean. I do also want you to note what's happening in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. There is a disturbed area here just kind of sitting, and we'll talk about the evolution of that and how that could impact potential development in the Gulf of Mexico coming up in just a minute as well. But we'll get into the short-term models to begin with, and then we'll deep dive into the tropics. So the first thing we'll do here is take a look at the short-term models for rainfall across their area over the next several days, and then we'll get into the island by island rainfall forecast as well. So I'm just going to drop these tropical development areas, and like I said, we're going to deep dive into that. But the first thing to note is all of the rich moisture that will be inherent in the Western Caribbean and across Central America. Some of you have asked me in the comments, Rusty, what is the Central American gyre? Again, it is a seasonal flow that develops a broad area of low pressure, which is associated with the monsoonal rains in this part of the world. Now, because it also develops during the height of the Atlantic tropical season, this can help to spin up storms as well. And that's exactly where Helene formed, on the southeast side of that Central American gyre here in the Western Atlantic, or excuse me, in the Western Caribbean. And again, that kind of scenario is plausible as this area of disturbed weather moves north and west across the Caribbean over the next few days. Then we'll talk about what happens when it gets into the Gulf of Mexico as well. But in the shorter term, it's going to be broad, it's going to be disorganized, but the rain chances will really begin to improve. Again, places like Jamaica, chances will just go higher and higher. We'll still be in that scattered variety through about Tuesday or Wednesday, but then I expect the rain chances to only go up. But there will also be better tropical moisture in play for Kingston and Port Moore and Spanish Town down into Grill and Montego Bay across the entire island. So the amount of rain should go up as well. These should be good tropical downpours where we could get a few inches of rain or 25 to 50 millimeters in any one location each and every day. So better rain chances there. It'll be the same situation across Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, and Cayman Brac as well. Again, just an increased moisture flow. Now look, some of these areas got hit hard by Helene and have already had enough rain. So hopefully we don't get too much, but if you're still looking for some rain, if you need it to cool things down, the chance is going to be much higher. Same situation for Quintana Roo, Cancun, Cozumel, back towards Chetumal, Merida area, then into Belize, Orange Walk, Belize City, Dangriga on over towards Belmopan as well. Northern sides of Honduras, Roatan, San Pedro Sula, Tegucigalpa, San Salvador there in El Salvador, and then back down into Nicaragua and Panama and Costa Rica. It's just going to be a very wet pattern here, guys, where rain chances will stay high. And again, this is before any true tropical development even gets going. Obviously, if something spins up in those areas, we're going to have more of a wind threat, even more concentrated rain. For Cuba, rain chances will remain very high as well, scattered showers and storms each and every day. This moisture doesn't necessarily reach the Bahamas, at least in the short term. So for Grand Bahama, Freeport, Lucaya, the Abacos, Bimini, New Providence, Andros, Eleuthera, Walker's Key, back down towards Cat Island, Long Island, Exuma, on over to the Acklands there on the southeast side of the island chain. Scattered rain at best, not a huge chance. This is an area that's under a heat advisory. So for the Bahamas, it's more about the heat the next few days than trying to get better rain chances. But hopefully you'll get some to cool things off. Same situation for my friends in the Turks and the Caicos. Across Haiti and the Dominican Republic, rain chances should be decent over the next few days. So for Santo Domingo and Punta Cana and Port-au-Prince and Lacay, Bajarona, Santiago de los Caballeros, again, 40 to 50% chance each day. Some pockets of heavier rain. Watch out for some of the lightning to go along with it as well. But again, trying to cool things off in the areas that don't get the rain. Feels like temperatures could push 110 Fahrenheit. That is 43 degrees Celsius each and every afternoon. Hey, guess what? We also have heat advisories in effect for Puerto Rico and portions of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Once again, for my friends in St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, passing showers, nothing extremely concentrated. Rain chances will be marginal at best, even across Puerto Rico, San Juan, Ponce, Arecibo, Aguadilla as well. 30 to 40% chance at best. Now, I do expect slightly higher chances here in the Leeward Islands, Antigua and Barbuda, especially here over the next couple of days. Anguilla, St. Martin, and St. Bart's, all with solid rain chances. But there will still be dry areas. There'll be still dry hours here. It's not going to be a deluge of rain. Passing showers with the easterly trades. We could actually have some swells developing on the western side of the island because there's a little bit of a northerly component to the wind here across the Lesser Antilles. So that could kick up a little bit of the sea conditions as well. Just keep that in mind. Again, Barbados is just one of those areas that just seems to have the opportunity for some excessive rainfall. The model isn't necessarily picking it up, but I've seen, especially on the western side of the island, where we've had some healthier rain totals. And that could be true too for Dominica and Martinique and Guadeloupe, all the way down to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Trinidad and Tobago as well. Isolated but heavier rain. And again, as I've mentioned, the ABC Islands, which could really use more showers, still have that opportunity this Sunday and Monday. We'll start to dry out a bit, I think, on Tuesday, at least in some areas. But hey, we've got that chance. So here's your island by island rain chances. Again, fairly isolated the next few days in the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos as well. Cuba's rain chances are going to be high. Cayman Islands rain chances will continue to improve as well. And again, more than likely, the higher rain chances are even yet to come beyond this 3-day forecast. Same thing for our friends in Belize City, but good rain chances begin to move in, and Cancun and Cozumel. Jamaica's rain chances again should improve, but these areas will also have better moisture quality, which means higher chances for some heavier rain to come along with it too. Just some really good downpours expected. Again, the Dominican Republic and Haiti, decent shower chances, but again, there'll still be some dry areas and still some hot conditions. Puerto Rico kind of bobbles back and forth, hoping for some better rain chances beginning on Tuesday. Same thing for the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. Scattered showers for Bermuda. Again, decent rain in Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis today. Antigua and Barbuda especially. Higher rain chances overall across the Lesser Antilles today, and then falls off a bit Monday, Tuesday, but not much. We're still looking at a good 40% chance on Tuesday for Guadeloupe and Dominica and Martinique. Slightly drier, slightly more of a drop off for the rain chances, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, into Barbados as well. Trinidad and Tobago will stay with scattered rain. But that being said, especially down in Trinidad, there could still be some pockets of very heavy rain. So watch out for that. And always check in with your local government, your local officials when the rain gets going for any flood warnings to concern yourself with. At this point in time, as I'm recording this, we haven't had that heavy rain develop yet on this Sunday, but that is a possibility across some of these islands. Suriname and Guyana a little bit farther south, rain chances improve across the mainland. And again, decent chances for Nueva Esparta and the ABC Islands. Time now to talk tropics, and as we do, I want to thank you for a very quick payback. If you have an opportunity to hit that thumbs up right now, that like button really helps support me here at Meteo Mundo, the team behind the scenes as well. Thank you for that. Welcome to all of our new subscribers. Thank you for joining the Meteo Mundo weather community. I think we have a great one here, the best. So appreciate you hitting that subscribe button and finding ways to support the channel in the description below as well. So now we're going to get into what's going on with the tropics. So I'm going to bring back up the model, but we're going to look at the GFS in the longer range with this, and we're going to go over each single one of these with a fine-tooth comb, and then we're going to talk about kind of the overall evolution. I'm going to show you the ensemble members from the GFS and the European as well. So we're going to do it just like we did in yesterday's video. We're going to start with what has actually developed so far, and we still have Hurricane Isaac here in the North Atlantic. Now, Isaac is a powerful storm, but again, it's not going to be impacting any land. As it continues to move north, it'll become more of a hybrid or subtropical system as it interacts drier air and cooler water. So again, moving deep into the North Atlantic here. Eventually could even get close to Iceland, but we're way down the road with that. But you can just see it's in the open waters. Joyce continues to struggle, which is what we love to see. It is still technically a tropical storm, but in the next couple of days, Joyce should begin to become extratropical and fall apart. Remember, this is deep into Central Atlantic, far away from the Lesser Antilles and the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands. I'm sure you have seen on this loop this puppy. This is the high likelihood development area. And more than likely, this is going to become Kirk, the next named storm on the list, rather than the one in the Western Caribbean, because I think development with this area in red is likely to happen fast. And by the way, more than likely, Kirk is going to be a very strong hurricane in the Central Atlantic. But you notice it's taking the same kind of path that Joyce is. This is what we love to see. A major hurricane in the Atlantic, but moving nowhere near any land. This should be a fish storm. It should stay in the open waters of the Atlantic, and hopefully, of course, as it gains latitude, it begins to weaken. I'll closely monitor that situation, and of course, right now, it is Invest 90L. Very quickly, we could get a depression or a tropical storm. So I do believe this one is going to end up being the next named storm, and that would be Kirk. Friends, on the heels of that, there's another wave off the West African coast we're going to have to closely monitor. And again, low chance so far, but this puppy's just getting off of the coastline. This one should end up having a fairly high chance for development as well. But that's something I'll be monitoring. But again, that's far into the Eastern Atlantic. Now let's talk about the one that's closest to home right now. You can see the potential development area from the National Hurricane Center. It's still a 50% chance as of this Sunday. I think we're still a few days away from really getting any opportunity for this to begin to spin up, but that chance should go higher. And there is still a high likelihood that ultimately we do get a named storm out of this. So more than likely, if Kirk forms first in the Atlantic, this would be Leslie. Still a 50% chance, as I said. Let's look at the latest GFS model to begin with. As we've talked about, this Central American gyre has inherent spin with it. It's just a very broad area of low pressure. And just like Helene did, as it moves into the Western Atlantic, Northwestern Caribbean, we could start to see this begin to spin up. Now, the GFS model this time yesterday was a little bit more aggressive at actually trying to develop a tropical storm in the Northwest Caribbean before it got into the central side of the Gulf of Mexico. Today's model run is a little bit weaker in the shorter term. But again, just like with the formation of Helene, you're going to expect these models to go back and forth with much varied solutions until we actually get a low-level center of circulation to develop. It happens all the time. It is not surprising whatsoever that the GFS is weaker today compared to tomorrow, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if tomorrow afternoon's runs get stronger again. That windshield wiper effect going back and forth happens all the time with these global models with developing systems. Still going to expect high rain chances again for Jamaica and the Cayman Islands and Cuba and all of Central America and the Yucatan as this continues to progress north and west. All right. That's in the shorter term. Now, in the longer term, what happens with this system? Well, again, the models continue to vary. You can see that the GFS is weaker at this point in time as we get into the latter part of next week, or the week ahead, if you want to call it that, and into the weekend. And again, sloppier system, but still the opportunity for some development. If you also notice, there is still a spin in the southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico, and both the GFS and the European models have picked up on this. The big question right now that I have is, does this spin kind of almost merge with what's happening here and they progress together to the north and to the east, or does this system stay separate, move up, and then a chunk of this energy begins to move north and east maybe in about 9 or 10 days from now? The bottom line is we could have a couple of areas of tropical interest in the Gulf of Mexico, with this area in the southwest Gulf just kind of staying there and not moving over the next week or so. And then obviously with the orange area you see for the National Hurricane Center, whatever evolves out of the Western Caribbean. Let's take a look at the winds associated with this. And again, yesterday's model run in the Western Caribbean had a tropical storm developing. Showed you that. You want to go back to yesterday's video, you can see that. Today, it's much broader. It's gusty winds, just kind of like Helene was over the Cayman Islands, where we had some tropical storm wind gusts, but nothing was truly organized until we got to the Yucatan Channel. Now, on today's GFS run, you'll note again, very broad, and then it's just weaker as it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. We see no true development here. That would be fantastic. But again, it's just one model run. However, in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, we continue to see this overall broad spin. So we'll have to wait and see how the interaction of those two will play out. But when you're talking about multiple areas of spin, you're talking about multiple potentials for tropical development, especially this time of the year. Friends, we're in the heart of it. It's this time of the year where these things like this can get going in a hurry. And all you have to do is go back to Helene to see exactly what I'm talking about. So we have to vigilantly watch out how this plays. All right. Switch over to another model just to show you a little bit different here. And I just looped this up over the next couple of days. You'll see on this particular model, this is the NAM, by the way. It's not the most fantastic tropical model, but just for the wind purposes again here, this area becomes just a little bit more prominent overall. So again, places like Jamaica and the Cayman Islands and the western portions of Cuba and the Yucatan, if nothing else, could get back into some good squalls here by about Tuesday or Wednesday. And then we'll just have to see how that freshens up. And once again, we have this broad spin in the southwest side of the Gulf to continue to concern ourselves with as well. So here's the GFS. Now, really slow loop here, guys, okay? Potential development, Northwest Caribbean, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, all right? That begins to move into the central Gulf on Friday. Notice there's a second low in the southwest Gulf that hangs out here and doesn't get pulled along with this. Again, on the ensemble members, we were looking at the deterministic, but on the ensemble, there are signals of moving this into the eastern Gulf of Mexico over next weekend, okay? Then, could this begin to also develop and move north and east into the next week, into about the 8, 9, 10-day time frame? And you can see that. This would be the first storm, and potentially the second one here as well. So we're going to have to really closely monitor the Gulf for those two potential development areas. Look, I think both of them could develop. I think neither of them could develop. We'll just have to see how this plays out. But the ensembles are at least moderately aggressive in the development, especially of what's coming out of the Caribbean. Now, the European model, it's about the same situation. You see the potential development here. The European model tries to actually slide this closer to Florida quicker, and then into the southwest Gulf as, again, we get into the latter part of the weekend ahead and early for the week after, so days 8, 9, and 10. Now you even start to see some signals in the western Gulf of Mexico from that area just sitting in the southwest Gulf as we speak. So again, two potential development areas. The first one is quicker, kind of over Florida and into the western Atlantic, and the second one lags behind here and tries to develop in the central Atlantic. This is a snapshot of that same model, the same European ensemble for Thursday the 10th. Again, wanting to note the potential development area in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, which again, the Hurricane Center hasn't highlighted again, but just pointing it out from what I'm seeing on these ensembles, that there could be two separate areas in the Gulf to watch out for over the next 10 to 12 days. Also of note, we start to see more signals on the European model, again, trying to push more aggressive systems into places like the Lesser Antilles, the US and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, maybe down the road towards the Dominican Republic, Haiti, the Turks and Caicos, and the Bahamas. It's because our Bermuda High, which has been kind of pushed back north and east, begins to expand back to the south, and that should allow these disturbances and these waves coming off the West African coast to go more east to west in the main development region of the Atlantic rather than recurve quicker north. So the trajectories of the waves in the second week of October should be more where we're gonna have to watch out for our eastern areas for some beginning to move in there rather than gaining that north latitude quickly and just being fish storms. So breaking it down overall for you guys, all right, and I hope this summary helps. For the Western Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, I think a tropical depression is likely, okay? But does it become a storm? Does it become a hurricane? Are there multiple areas? That's all still in the weeds. And that's just as simply as far as we can get right now. So we have to watch out for if that further intensifies and of course what the ultimate track would be. And I'll keep a very close eye on it for you for the week ahead. For the Central Atlantic, again, Kirk is likely to form sooner than later. That should be a strong hurricane, but it's going to be a fish storm, should have no impact to land. And then ultimately in the Western Atlantic and then into the Eastern Caribbean, tropical development chances should begin to start to increase in the 10-day time frame. And that's what I just showed you on the European model. When we look at our surf and sea conditions for our mariners, our boating interests, again, you would obviously expect here when we start to loop this back up that we're going to have some fresh winds and kicking up the seas into the Northwest Caribbean, portions of the Gulf of Mexico as well. You can see just those elevated conditions overall. Now, based on the GFS model, again, we would see some higher impacts to the northern Gulf of Mexico, the coastline there, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, portions of Florida. Also note real quickly here at the end of this time frame, you can see some really strong winds coming back into the Atlantic. You see that surge coming back in. We got to watch that again in that second week of October time frame here with more potential tropical development areas, but also just really kicking up some higher sea conditions there as well. Now, with the Central American gyre, okay, you can clearly see the very heavy rainfall that continues to develop over Central America and the Yucatan, and then some of that skirting into the Northwest Caribbean and Jamaica and the Cayman Islands and Cuba, and ultimately again back into portions of the Southeast United States. Still going to get some decent rain in the Lesser Antilles and the Greater Antilles overall, but obviously with the Central American gyre, that broad spin playing a bigger factor. Ultimately, those areas, at least in the shorter term, will have some higher rain chances. We're looking at 2 to 4 inches of rain in a lot of spots. It's 50 to 100 millimeters, but there will be a lot of heavier totals, especially if we get some tropical development areas to be monitoring. Friends, you know I appreciate you. You can find us across all social media. We're not just here on YouTube. We're on Instagram, TikTok, where we do some exclusive content. You can find us on X. We have a Facebook page. You want to send me a picture or video, it's mymeteomundo@gmail.com. Love to show you that in our YouTube videos here about what's happening weather-wise in your area. You have a specific question about the forecast, feel free to drop it in the comment section below as well. And again, friends, while you're down there, thank you for being part of the Meteo Mundo weather community. Like and subscribe to the channel. You have a great rest of your Sunday. I'll be back tomorrow with all the newest information for you right here at Meteo Mundo.